Continue on with our NHL season preview series as we're looking through teams in the Central Division currently. Now, today we look at the Colorado Avalanche. 2 years ago, they were the Stanley Cup champions. Can they compete again for another cup? We'll discuss what to expect and how this team has changed coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're doing a season preview for the Colorado Avalanche. So if you're new to this series, essentially what we do here is we recap last year, take a look at some key team and individual stats, analyze their cap space, take a look at how the team has changed through subtractions and additions. We take a look at any prospects that we feel could be impactful this year. Take a look at some candidates for bounceback or breakthrough players that could also have a big impact on the roster. And then we look at the projected lineup and analyze any questions facing the franchise for the season. So let's start by recapping the 22-23 campaign for the Avalanche. Of course, going into last season, they were the defending Stanley Cup champions. Of course, they won the Stanley Cup in 2022. They finished with a record of 51-24-7 for 109 points. A really, really solid regular season. They scored 280 goals, which was 11th best. They allowed 226, which was 9th best. Wicket power play at 24.5% success rate, which was 6th best. PK was a little bit lower, 17th in the NHL at 79%, but for the most part, really they had a lot going well for them. Obviously winning their division. Even though they had a wicked regular season, unfortunately the playoffs did not bring any kind of fortune like they had the year before when they won the Cup. They went out in the first round to the upstart Seattle Kraken, who were of course in the playoffs for the very first time and certainly surprised them. And I don't think it's a case of them taking them lightly. I think for the most part, the Avalanche have played a ton of hockey. I think they just kind of ran out of gas. The Kraken were prepared for them, and they took them down. It was a long, hard-fought series, but Seattle did eliminate the Cup champions. That's just how tight the NHL is. You can win the Cup one year, be out the first round the next, or not even make it sometimes. So let's also take a look at who their leading scorers were through the regular season. Of course, led by Nate MacKinnon, 111 points. Mikko Rantanen put up 105. Makar only had 66 points, but he also only appeared in 60 games due to some injuries. Makar would have, of course, been on pace for around 90 points or so. So certainly would have been another, potential trifecta. They're getting close to the 100-point plateau. JT Compher had 52, and Arturi Lehkonen had 51. This team has made the playoffs 6 consecutive years now, and they're going to make the stretch out to at least 7 going for the coming year. This Colorado Avalanche team, certainly, I think it's fair to say, had a little bit more time to rest and recover this offseason after, like I said, an early elimination compared to the year before. And I think this team should be able to bounce back and be a force again for the 23-24 season. Now, going into the year, they know they're not going to have Captain Gabriel Landeskog still. He's going to be sitting out the entire regular season. So they are deep into LTIR because of that contract. They do have $525,000 in available cap space, which is via LTIR. So ultimately, they are optimistic about the future of Landeskog, but right now he's not going to be in their lineup for the regular season. Now let's take a look at how this team has changed during the course of the summertime. The subtractions compared to last year's roster include JT Compher signing a free agent deal in Detroit. Evan Rodriguez also left via free agency. They traded Alex Newhook to the Montreal Canadiens. Dennis Malkin is no longer with this team. He went back to Europe. Matt Nieto's gone. Eric Johnson ended up in Buffalo. Lars Eller went to Pittsburgh, and Keith Kincaid's got an American Hockey League deal, and I believe he's also got a two-way deal with another club as well. So he's likely going to be spending the year in the AHL, which is what he did under the Avalanche mostly as well. But for the most part, you could say some reasonable, significant change, but not as significant as the year before. But Compher, Rodriguez, Newhook were all regulars for the entire year and were a little bit more impactful than some of the other names. Of course, EJ was there a long time as well. It's going to be weird seeing Johnson play in a different uniform after being in the Avalanche organization for such a long stretch. Now, as far as additions go, they certainly made some interesting moves, and they're going to have a new look this year. They picked up Ryan Johansson in a trade ahead of free agency, and then, of course, they also got Ross Colton from Tampa. So Johansson and Colton are going to add a whole new dynamic down the middle of the ice for the Avalanche, so that's going to give them a real solid depth at center. Colton can also play wing if need be. They bring in Jonathan Drouin, who of course was the very successful junior teammate of Nathan MacKinnon with the Halifax Mooseheads. Of course, Drouin's career in Montreal has not gone well the past few years, but ultimately, thought a fresh start and somewhere else in a new city, and of course being reunited with his old buddy and teammate MacKinnon, who lobbied to bring him to Colorado for a second chance on a short, cheap deal, could prove to be quite successful. I mean, so far, right now they are projected to maybe get a chance to play together, so we'll see if they can't recreate some of that magic they had back in the Q and the Mooseheads organization. They also brought in Miles Wood from New Jersey, who of course brings a different element, a little bit more of a physical style of play. And they added Chris Wagner as well, and then a late offseason addition of Tomas Tatar. Now, Tatar's name might not show on the graphic there because the graphics were made before he signed, but Tatar, to me, is one of the probably best bargain UFA deals we've seen. I mean, it came late, and obviously once, because of the late season signing, he didn't get as much as he was probably hoping for, same with Term, but at the end of the day, Tatar, it could be a real low-key good addition to this team and really help them really, have a good, solid, responsible two-way player who can produce offensively as well. Now, prospect-wise, do they have many prospects that you can really say are going to have an impact on this roster? Not really. If you're looking for call-up options, you're probably going to see some games from guys like Jean-Luc Foudy or Oscar Olofsson maybe. But the Avalanche team are not really deep when it comes to prospects. There's really nobody that's knocking on the door expected to make a big impact for the coming year. Of course, you get Justice Anuna between the pipes as well. He may get a chance depending on injuries, whatnot. But that's the guys, we want to keep an eye on those prospects to see how they do because they could impact the future. But at this point, you can't pencil them in for a regular role, that's for sure. They also have some guys on PTOs who could possibly be signed as well, including Joel Kiviranta, comes from Dallas, Saku Manalainen, and Peter Holland. Holland's been out of the league for a while, but is coming back on a PTO, so we'll see how he does. It'd be hard to imagine him getting an opportunity, but you just never know. As far as some candidates that we call bounce back or breakthrough candidates, for bounce back, I'm going with Ryan Johansson. He's got a fresh start, new team, going to probably play with some higher offensive players. A couple of years back, he and Matt Duchene both really had significant improvements, which really helped Nashville. Then last year, they did take steps back again. I think the fresh start is needed for him. He's likely going to play second-line center for them and really could be a big part of that team. So I think he's going to get some good line mates, and I think we'll see his point totals go up this year and have him bounce back. Ross Colton is going to be my breakthrough candidate, I think, this year as well. We're going to see him really step things up and get that 25 plus goals. Colton, I think, on a more offensive team, more offensive role. I mean, the Lightning obviously very offensively gifted as well, but for the most part, I don't know if he played with as strong offensive line mates, but it really depends on where he's deployed. If he's on the third line with the Avs, then obviously that's going to change. But, I mean, depending on how Drouin makes out, if they play Drouin with MacKinnon, if it doesn't work and they got to move somebody else up there, I can see Colton maybe getting pulled from the third line center role to maybe play wing in the top six. It just really depends on where they put him. But Colton, to me, I think could be a real breakthrough player. That was a good pickup for them in free agency. Now let's take a look at how this lineup looks. This is courtesy of dailyfaceoff.com. Now again, Tomas Tatar does not show here because all of these graphics were produced before they signed him, but ultimately Tatar is going to be on your third line. So your top two lines right now are anticipated to be MacKinnon with Rantanen and Drouin, and your second line of Ryan Johansson with Val Nichushkin and Arturi Lehkonen. Your third line likely is going to be Ross Colton with Miles Wood and Tomas Tatar. And then your fourth line will be some combination of probably Myers, Cogliano, and O'Connor. So essentially, I think what the Tatar addition will do is it will bump Wagner out of a regular spot, move O'Connor down in the lineup, and Tatar will take a third line spot with Colton. I mean, Colton, Tatar, and Wood could be a really good third line. I really like that Tatar addition. That really kind of adds some much needed depth on the wings for your bottom six, and he's a guy who can play top six as well if there's injuries or if things need a shake up or what have you. So on the back end, you're going to get a combo of Devon Tays and Cale Makar, followed by Bowen Byram and Josh Manson, and then Jack Johnson and Sammy Girard make up your third pair, with Curtis McDermott being your Number 7, Georgiev and Francouz is your goaltending tandem. Francouz is expected to start the season injured, though, so they may have somebody else in that spot. There's some rumors that they may be looking to bring in some insurance, so to speak. Now, the questions facing the team as we go into this season and training camp, obviously the Francouz injury is concerned. He may not be ready to start the year. There's some talk they could look to a guy like Jerard Fagerberg, for example, as a UFA. There's some talk about a potential trade, maybe Danny Vladar in Calgary. There was some talk about Casey DeSmith in Montreal, but he's already been moved to Vancouver. So that's off the table. Either way, do look for the Avalanche to likely bring in a number 3 goalie as some insurance. I don't think that's something they're going to want to spend a lot of assets or money on, but something that they can feel comfortable putting on waivers down the road once Francouz is healthy. We'll see. Now, another thing hanging over this team throughout the year is going to be the potential contract extension for defenseman Devon Toews. He's certainly well outplayed his current deal, and I'm sure he's going to be looking for a hefty raise, and that's going to be challenging for them to accommodate. I have no doubt they want to keep the player, and they want him to sign long-term to remain there. I'm absolutely sure they want to do that. But can they make the money work? I mean, his value has increased substantially since he's arrived, and it's going to be challenged. But I think it would be good for the team if they can get that looked after before too long. But it will be challenging. I don't think, even if they can't come to terms, if they're having a hard time, I don't see a scenario where they trade him this year. They're in win-now mode. He's a huge part of the team. There's no way he gets dealt before the deadline because of a contract. As much as they don't want to lose him for nothing, they would be getting a major subtraction from the roster and hurting themselves going into the playoffs, which doesn't make any sense for them. They've also had a lot of changes within the top 9, so another question might be is, are you going to have that chemistry there right away? How long is it going to take? Will they have a slow start because of it? Obviously, McKinnon and Jerome played together before, so that might not be too bad, but you still got Johansson and Colton and Tatar and Wood all new to this team. Now, Wood and Tatar both come from the Devils, although I don't believe they spent a lot of time playing together, but at least they're familiar with each other and would have played together at least a little bit. So we'll see, but sometimes a lot of change can be too much, and it may not necessarily be a bad thing, but it just might take a little bit of time to kind of get a good groove going. And it wouldn't be completely shocking if they had a bit of a slow start because of it. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying if it does, be patient, and this team will get rolling, I have no doubt. And, of course, there's the Landeskog injury. One question is, will he be available for playoffs, which I know they made a comment before saying they were optimistic and hopeful that he might be able to return for the playoffs. So if he is going to be able to do that, then at some point, if they can know that before it gets too late in the year, that'll have a great impact on their plans at the deadline. Because if they knew they're getting him back for sure, then that's like a major pickup, right? So you don't really need to make a trade for another scoring forward. If you get him coming back, that changes the complete dynamic. So whether or not he's available later in the year will be huge. I mean, he won't be for the regular season, but if they can add his name and abilities to this lineup for the playoffs, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, and will definitely be one of the top teams in the West, and definitely one of the top 4 or 5 teams as Stanley Cup contenders, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts and the expectations for the Avalanche down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.